Hey everybody, it's Steve with some ideas about controlling DMX lights directly from a drum set. I've been interested in seeing if I could do this for quite a while now, and after some experimenting, I'm going to show you how to do it, whether it's an electronic drum set like this or an acoustic set with triggers. It could be an interesting way to sync lights to either an exact beat, odd timing, drum fills, or maybe just a cool dramatic effect to add for your live shows. So in this video, I want to show you how to program your drum pads and set everything up to trigger scenes using a simple DMX hardware controller, and then show you how to do the same thing using a free app on a tablet, and finally show a way to set this up so each drum in your kit can trigger a different DMX light. I have these 4 inexpensive PAR lights daisy-chained together and plugged into my trusty Chauvet Obey 40 controller. And on the back of the controller, there's a MIDI in jack, and a lot of basic controllers have this feature. So I've programmed some simple scenes that I can trigger by pressing the buttons on the controller, but I can also trigger those scenes via MIDI by sending MIDI note data to the controller. So for example, I've got a MIDI keyboard plugged into it, and if I send MIDI note 0, it triggers scene 1 in bank 1. If I send MIDI note 1, it triggers scene 2 in bank 1, and so on. And the only thing that you really need to set up is that the MIDI channel on the keyboard matches the MIDI channel on the DMX controller. This is an Alesis Nitro Mesh drum set, and like most electric drum sound modules, you can go into this one and you can assign any MIDI note to any of its pads. And it's really easy on this one. All you do is just pick the drum, then go into the voice until you get to MIDI, and then using these buttons, you set the MIDI note number up and down. And then you save the user kit, and it remembers all those pad assignments. To make it the easiest to sync up scenes on the Obey 40 that I've already programmed, I'm going to set the snare to note 1, the kick to 2, the crash to 3, the toms to 4, 5, and 6, and the ride to 7. And the important thing to know is that the Nitro module only outputs MIDI on channel 10, and you can't change that. So you need to set the MIDI channel on the Obey 40 to channel 10 by pressing the MIDI button using the bank up and down buttons to get to 10. So now everything's all set up, and the drum module's MIDI out is plugged into the Obey 40's MIDI in, and everything should work perfectly. But it doesn't really work right. It's kind of working, but not reliably, not the way that you'd expect. Damn, I wanted this to work so badly. But what I learned is that the Obey 40 doesn't like the MIDI note data coming from the drum module, and neither did my software controller. So here's how you make it work. There's an awesome free app called MIDI Pipe that runs on a Mac. It takes any MIDI in data and transforms it into any MIDI out data. Here's my old PowerBook with a very simple MIDI interface plugged in between the drum module and the hardware controller. Now when you launch MIDI Pipe, you can make your own custom filters, or you can just download the one that I made from the link below. Now when this is programmed and you play the drums, they end up working the way that you would expect them to. I've been using this app on my iPad called Vibrio as my DMX controller, and the advantage of using a software controller is sometimes it gives you more options for configuring scenes, and sometimes it makes it easier to get effects. So to get the MIDI into the iPad, I used a second MIDI interface that connects to the output of the first interface and then through a USB to Lightning connector into the iPad. You can see I've programmed scenes similar to what are in the Obey 40, and in order to assign the MIDI pad to this scene, you just hit edit. I'm going to erase this assignment. You hit your pad, and that pad is assigned to this scene. And so I've assigned the different drums to the different scenes, and you can see them triggering just the same way that they did on the Obey 40, only now in software. You probably don't want your drummer controlling the light show the whole gig, or maybe you do, but it's simple to duplicate a show and put normal assignments in your second show, and then you can go back and forth between shows when you're tired of having your drummer in charge, like I often am. Another way that you could program and assign your drum pads is to assign a different pad to each light. So for example, here I programmed this scene to be matched to the kick drum, snare, hi-hat, and crash, just as an example. I wish I was a drummer. But you can see the potential if you had an entire kit assigned to a big lighting rig. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.